Alrighty folks, this is Lurch from Ireland Gaming and welcome back to another episode of From the Depths. I figured it was about time I got round to taking a better look at some of the campaign ships that I'm using in my current Let's Play series. Someone requested a better look at them, so I figured, yeah, why not? Before we start adding more and carry on with the campaign, because I actually have two completed now. The Rottweiler is more or less finished development, and you might have seen the video for my, what was he called? The Doberman, the railgun ship that I posted yesterday. And I will probably be using him in the campaign as well, although maybe a little bit in the future. But before we get too big of a fleet, I figure it was time to have a look at some of the ships so far. So we'll start at the very, very baby ship on the end, and this is the Particle. The very, very first little spammable, super cheap mega ship that I built. It is 8,000 RP, next to nothing, and it does actually perform pretty well. It's got this little turret-mounted 3 missile rack. One of these is a torpedo, the one in the middle is a torpedo. I'll have a look at it there, it's a double frag. Very, very simple little warhead, and just ejects off and, you know, swims away towards the target. These are infrared seekers, very simple missiles. They pop up and they fire. They have a delay on their fire, so let's hop on here and just put the UI on so I can see them selected, and pop! And off they go! You see they have a bit of a delay whenever they fire. It's a nice little system, looks pretty cool, and it's a good way to make ejectors work well with thrusters. But this guy is very minimalist. He's made up of about 50 blocks, 74 blocks, not too many. It's got two simple props on the back here, rudder for steering, very tiny engine. It's basically a Micro 100, one of Rigger's, only with the turbocharger moved a little bit. We have one single shield, and that projects a big flat shield along the top here. I only used one to keep the cost down, even though maybe two would be much more effective because I could angle them. But yeah, that's that. I put that on just to help. It actually really helps it survive. There is an AI. The AI is in here, Tetrised beside the engine block with the splitter, and it's just got a naval AI with some fairly simple configurations. It's set to stay fairly far away, and this really helps it to survive. And it's got a very high broadside angle, so it kind of sort of circles the target. I often use this setup in many of my ships because it's really effective. He'll also cower and run away whenever an enemy gets more than 750 meters within range. Very good. Also, there is one interesting little feature in this guy. Now that is a lead block. There's a couple of lead blocks to keep him, to balance him out. There's two at the back there. There's one in the nose. There's also a hydrofoil here. Why on earth is there a hydrofoil here? The reason is I have a PID controller. And the PID controller is set to control altitude, and he's set to keep it at an altitude of 1 meter. What this does with these current settings is if it deviates from its path, it'll angle the hydrofoil upwards and keep the nose up in the water, and it'll make sure that the props are able to stay in the water and push the thing along. It's just a little stability bonus. It helps keep the thing moving well. I find that without this little system, it had a habit of nosediving into the water, and it wasn't terribly effective, but a simple addition of a PID controller there really helped it out. I think it's got ammo here tucked in the nose. Yeah, 2 ammo racks. It has an ammo processor here. You can see it, and yeah, that's more or less it. Very simple little build, very cheap. But rather than doing this all in one section, I'm going to cut here and move on to the next ship. So this is the Rhino, and the Rhino is armed with these this very small no-loader turret. Now I realise now, since the turret traversing changes have been added, I could probably get rid of this mantlet. It's not really necessary anymore, and it would help to reduce the cost of the turret, so that's something I'll possibly do in the future. But these ships in our current campaign are almost already obsolete with the Bulldog there on the end. So we'll be moving on to bigger and better things, and we'll probably be using these guys for sort of last-ditch coast defense, or maybe even just throwing them at the enemy to distract fire. But yeah, it's got this teeny little cannon. I can't even remember what gauge it is. 60mm. Not that tiny. I think it's got 3 inputs. It's got a reasonable fire rate, and it fires a pretty long sabot shell. It does about 300 damage. Alright for taking out small aircraft. Absolutely better than nothing. What else do we have? These are pretty big IR missiles. They've got a camera on them. It's got 3 frag warheads, lots and lots of fuel, and a short-range thruster. They're reasonably agile for a big missile. The trouble with these ones is their fire rate is, like, their reload speed is awful. Let's see, how many blocks is this? I think it's 7 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 4 is 28, so they have about a 28, 30-second reload each. Yeah, pretty long, and they're very hard on ammo to fire. But at the same time, they can go really, really, really far, which is good. And that's another defense mechanism that I'm using in this ship as well. He's configured to stay really far away and fire at, from a distance. There's no limit on that cannon. Because it's an AP one, it's got a really good range, and it's really quite accurate at long distance. Some of the stuff is tucked in below here. I think I'd probably be better just shrinking the view. So, here is the cannon, or the shell, 2 solid and AP capped. At the 60, it does 800 damage. Oh, this is actually better than I remember. Pretty powerful little shell. It's got quite a low refire rate, if I remember right. Because there's only 3 inputs and I'm not using an autoloader, it's got, 3-second shell to clip time, so 3 inputs. It's got about a 1-second refire rate. It's not brilliant. 60 rounds per minute isn't brilliant, but it gets the job done. And it's very, very cheap. We have some ammo processors in here, some metal, or ammo router, very important, a little air pump to keep them a little bit more stable in the water, and a little ejector. Now the ejectors here are quite important because these are flat launch missiles. These hop upwards about 20 or 30 feet into the air, and then they take off. And we should be able to do that now. Let's shoot off. Nope. Let us get ourselves. There we go. And off they go. Huge, oh sugar. Get back into the seat. There we go. But yeah, very, very big missiles, and they do the trick quite well. This thing can take on a Kalmar quite easily, and it's also very cheap. 30k, give or take. It's got a couple of shields. It has an extremely small engine. This is only a Micro 100. It's got 100 engine power. That's it. Absolutely nothing more. It's a super, super efficient one though. It's got 2 superchargers and like 3 turbos on it. Runs for absolutely ages, and it's only got 1 little fuel tank, or 2 little fuel tanks here. And I think this thing runs for about 5 hours or something like that without any extra fuel. Very good. I like the little engine bay here too. I think it's quite pretty. There's another shield tucked in there at the back as well. It's got 3 very small props here, and these are the turning props, and they're because they're behind the center of mass, they're set to thruster reverse, and that allows the AI to use them to turn effectively. It's also got a little bit of ballast at the bottom here, just for balancing, and yeah, that's more or less it. Performs very well for such a small cheap ship. It's only got like 1 or 2 repair bots, but yeah, a couple of these services very, very well, and like I say, very cheap. Also, this thing has got a PID controller. This one is configured for roll stability, and it has 2 downwards facing props, and these are set to roll left hand side, the other is set to roll reverse, and there's a PID controller in here somewhere. Where are you? It'll be configured, connected to the AI. Where are you? No, that's the mainframe. No, there you are. Okay, so it's 0.01 and 2 on the derivative time, integral set to no limit, and we have a naval roll. What this does is anytime that the ship detects that it's rolling off a 0 degree, which is where we want to stay, it'll fire on those roll thrusters and set it up and try and get it back to center as quickly as possible. But it's very, very, very good, works very well. And it helps because this turret is mounted quite high above the centre of mass, and it does actually cause a lot of roll. I could also have achieved the sort of similar effect by just using loads of hydrofoils along the side. That would do the same thing, but I wanted to play with the PID controllers. They're pretty cool, and even with those basic settings, that sort of 0.02 and maybe a 1 second on the third slider, that works for a lot of things, and you just have to set the little tab. But yeah, that is the Rhino, and he performs very, very well for his cost and works very well for me in the campaign. But next, we have the Snapper, so let's move on to him. No, this is the Snapper, and I sort of built this one as more of like a command vessel. It's sort of like the third in the tier, and it's more or less a combination of these two ships put together. It's got two of these little side-mounted Gatling gun things. They're no-loader cannons, 4 barrels. What even size are they? They're only very small. Yeah, 24mm. But they do reasonable damage, and they take out anti-air targets really quite well. And again, with the turret reversing changes, they're extremely fast turning, and they don't need a mantlet, so very good. Whenever I built this thing, I was kind of happy with how it looked. I thought it looked pretty cool, but now I actually think it looks a bit fugly. I think these sections here could be sort of stuck together a bit better and lead into each other. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, these ships are probably going to be retired fairly soon because they're cheap as chips, and we'll be moving on to bigger ships. Now, the main armament for this thing is actually the missiles at the front here, and this is a concealed weapon system. These are mounted on spin blocks, and these are 2-fin variable thrusters. They're very slow missiles. They've got low fuel tanks, but they've got quite a lot of range because they've got low thrust. They've got 3 frag warheads and a simple infrared seeker. Very simple missiles, but they do the job fairly well, although they get very hampered by flares. It only turns upwards quite a small amount. Where are we? 15 degrees. Yeah, the way these are set up, incidentally, is these are... it's on the spin block. I don't want to be on the spin block. It makes my head bleed. There, we're on the body now. And shrinky blocks. We get a better look at what's going on here. Now, where are those ACBs? There is an ACB. We'll turn it on here so we can see what it's doing. Effect, if enemy range greater than 1050, spin blocks rotate to 15 degrees. Sorry, enemy range less than 1050. And that means that whenever there's an enemy within range, these spin blocks will pop up, and it will give the missiles space to fire, which is very nice. And then whenever the enemies go out of range, or when there's no enemies left, the spin blocks go back down again and protect it. It protects it a little bit from long range advanced cannon shells. That's more or less it. Concealed weapons aren't always that effective, but they can be in certain circumstances. For missiles, this was just sort of an easy way. It was more of an aesthetic thing for me in this ship, but you know, it works. It does its job. I did actually have to put a fairly long delay on the fire time. I think it's actually on the missile controller itself. Where are you? No, spinner. Yeah, there's a long delay on it. Yeah, 2 seconds to stop it shooting whenever the thing's still rotating upwards. Bit of a mess. This thing's got quite a lot of shields on it compared to the other ones. It's got a bigger engine in comparison, but even still, it's only got 800 power? I don't know, is this a... what is it? Oh, this is a Mr. Efficient core, I think. Yes, it is, and I added a couple of superchargers. Very simple. There's another one of Ruger's engines. I just have most of these prefabbed and spam them down wherever I need them. This is the internals. We have quite a bit of fuel available. It's very nice, and this thing will operate for absolutely ages. We have the ammo, very nice and defended, but it is right in the middle of the ship, so if it goes up, the whole thing goes up. Makes quite a mess. We have a lot of ammo processors actually. We probably don't need this many, but those missiles are very expensive. And a couple of simple resource storage here at the back. I did use these side-mounted rudders. These are an interesting way of getting a little bit of stability for your ship. If you place them facing that way, towards your ship, it actually acts like a little bit like a hydrofoil. But it doesn't give you much lift, it's more stability. It can be useful in some places, it's not always brilliant. Here we have some turning thrusters, again, because they're behind centre of mass, they're set to thruster reverse, and we have one huge prop on the back, and that's about all I had power for. There's no flashy PID or anything like that on this guy. It's actually probably the least techy of the 3 builds, there's not much to it. And we have a couple of shields in here to protect my little bonds, because this is my command ship. And what do these ACBs do? What do these do? Oh yeah, these are ACBs to control the shields. I believe the other ones have these as well. What these do is whenever there's an enemy within 5,000 meters, turns on the shields, or whenever, this is the one that's for whenever they're within 5,000 meters, turn on the shield, sets them to reflect. Whenever they're outside 5,000 meters or there's none of them, turns the shields off. Just helps to save a little bit of power. And on the campaign map, I believe it will soon be costing power, or costing more fuel in between, you know, when you're en route to places in the campaign map, whenever you're out of play. So yeah, something to bear in mind. Fuel efficient. I just broke that. Right, I'm not saving this, but that was a flare, like this one, and I just broke it. These are some horribly, horribly ineffective flares that I made. They shoot upwards with a variable thruster, or with a short-range thruster, shoot out about 45 degrees, and then shoot off into space. They're actually really bad, but they look kind of spiffy, so I left them in. What do these do? These are for... oh yeah, this actually triggers the flares whenever there's missiles. A lot of the time I will just set this to a timer, so every 5 seconds spit out a flare. In this case, this is actually detected whenever there's missiles nearby. There is a missile detection AI somewhere on the ship. There you are. And you detect missiles for the thing at the back. Probably better to just do it with an ACB, to be honest. Just one ACB telling the ejector to fire. That is the shell for this. Hello. Solid Sabot. You are only a 24mm. So you are 162. Not very much damage, but there are two of them, and if anything comes in front of it, they can take down some light aircraft fairly easily. But yeah, that is the Snapper. So we have the lovely Bulldog on the end here. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm afraid. Ruger is actually out this evening. I believe he's getting pissed, plastered, wankered, trolleyed. We have a lot of words for getting drunk here in Ireland. And he's doing all of them this evening. So I'm going to save the Bulldog, even though he's in our current Let's Play series, until the next one, which will be coming fairly soon, because I have another 3 ships to spotlight, and it would be nice to have Ruger here to talk about his creation, rather than me making a mockery of it and missing stuff. This thing's pretty complex. I'll give you a quick sneaky peeking on the inside and you'll see. This thing is completely solid. Solid, there are no spaces left. There are... and that melts my head. So I'm going to leave you with that sneaky peek of the internals of the Bulldog, and, you know, we'll leave it at that. And we'll see it properly in the next episode. I really hope you enjoyed this little sort of look at the campaign ships thus far. Any likes, subs or comments are really, really awesome. I love hearing from you guys, and I read every single comment. These ships are all available from a workshop collection that Ruger put together, and I'll leave a link for it in the video description. As always, take it handy, and have a bloody good day.